The stars looked the same as they always did. Cold, distant, and endless, Admiral Vexthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the void through the main screen. His ship, the Dominion's Wrath, was one of the biggest vessels in the Calreth Empire's fleet. It could destroy planets if needed. For 3,000 years, the Empire had ruled the galaxy. Every species knew their place. Every world paid tribute. Every rebellion was crushed before it could grow. Vexthar had spent his life making sure it stayed that way. His communication officer turned toward him. "Admiral, we're getting a strange report from Station Keth 9. "What kind of strange?" Vexthar asked. He was used to strange reports. Pirates, smugglers, equipment failures. Nothing the Empire couldn't handle. "They say their sensors are acting up. They can't get a clear reading on anything in their sector." Vexthar nodded. "Send a repair team. These outer rim stations always have problems." But 20 minutes later, the communication officer looked worried. "Admiral, we've lost contact with Station Keth 9 completely." This got Vexthar's attention. Station Keth 9 was one of their Fortress-class installations. It had 50,000 people on it. Enough weapons to level a city. It didn't just stop talking. "Set course for Keth 9, he ordered. "Maximum speed." Far away from the Imperial fleet, a small cargo ship drifted through space. It looked old and beaten up. The kind of ship that merchants used to carry supplies between worlds. Nothing special about it at all. But if someone could see through the ship's hull, they would find something impossible. The cargo hold was filled with technology that shouldn't exist. Computers that could think faster than any Imperial system. Weapons that could cut through the strongest armor. And most important of all, devices that bent light and space itself. Captain G1 sat in the pilot's chair, watching her screens. She was young for a ship captain, but she had learned to command in the hardest school possible. "War. How long until we reach the jump point?" she asked. Dohyun, her pilot, checked his instruments. 2 hours. The Imperial patrols won't even know we were here." G1 smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had lost everything and was finally getting a chance to fight back. 50 years ago, the Calreth Empire had found Earth. Humanity had just started exploring other star systems. They had small colonies, trade ships, research stations, nothing that could stand against an empire that controlled 1,000 worlds. The war lasted 6 months. When it was over, Earth was a burning rock. The human colonies were ash. Most people thought humanity was extinct. They were wrong. G1's crew was proof of that. Minho sat at the weapons station, his hands never far from the controls. He had been a soldier when Earth fell. Now he was something else. Something the Empire had created by trying to destroy him. Yuna worked at the engineering station, keeping their impossible ship running. She had been a university student when the Empire came. She learned to build weapons instead of bridges. Salmon monitored Imperial communications from her intelligence post. She heard every order, every report, every secret the Empire thought was safe. Before the war, she had been a teacher. Now she taught the Empire what fear meant. "Imperial fleet is moving toward Keth 9, Salmon reported. "Admiral Vexthar himself is leading them." "Good," Jawan said. "Let him come. Let him see what happens when you try to wipe out humanity." The Dominion's Wrath arrived at Station Keth 9's coordinates 8 hours later. Vexthar expected to find the station having equipment problems. Maybe some pirates causing trouble. Instead, he found empty space. "Scan the area," he ordered. Full spectrum analysis. His officers worked quickly. "The results made no sense, Admiral. There's nothing here. No debris, no energy signatures. No trace that anything was ever in this location." Vexthar stared at the empty space where a massive space station should have been. "That's impossible. Keth 9 was here yesterday. 50,000 people don't just disappear." The station's last transmission was routine, his communication officer reported. Everything was normal. Then nothing. Check the records again. "Are you sure these are the right coordinates?" "Yes, sir. This is definitely where Station Keth 9 was located." Vexthar had fought rebels before. He had seen terrorist attacks, guerrilla warfare, even full-scale battles. But he had never seen anything like this. A massive military installation had simply ceased to exist. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he said. "Station Keth 9 is missing." No explanation. "Request immediate investigation." On a hidden base deep in an asteroid field, Jiho received the Imperial transmission. He had been working undercover in the Empire's military for 5 years. To everyone around him, he was just another loyal officer. They had no idea he was human. He sent a coded message to the resistance. Target eliminated. Enemy confused. Fear beginning. The message reached Jiwon as her ship prepared for its next mission. The Silent Dawn was already invisible to Imperial sensors, hidden by technology that humanity had spent 50 years perfecting. Technology born from desperation and watered with blood. Status report, Jiwon ordered. All systems normal, Yuna said. The stealth field is holding perfectly. We could fly right next to an Imperial ship and they wouldn't see us. The quantum charges are ready, Minho added. We have enough firepower to take out another fortress station. Good. Summon, what's our next target? Summon pulled up the tactical display, the supply depot in the Korath system. It's isolated, minimal security. The Empire uses it to fuel their patrol ships in that sector. Perfect. When it disappears, they'll have to pull their patrols back or risk running out of fuel. Jiwon looked at her crew. They were young, but they had all lost everything to the Empire. Families, homes, entire worlds. The Empire thought it had won when it destroyed Earth. It thought humanity was finished. The Empire was about to learn how wrong it was. Set course for Korath, Jiwon ordered. Time to teach the Empire what happens when you try to extinct humanity. As the Silent Dawn jumped to hyperspace, invisible and silent, Admiral Vexthar was still staring at the empty space where Station Keth 9 used to be. He didn't know it yet, but he was looking at the beginning of the end of his empire. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, humanity was coming home. And it was bringing gifts the Empire would never forget. 3 weeks after Station Keth 9 vanished, Captain Hien was starting to believe in ghosts. He sat in his small office aboard the Imperial intelligence ship Watchful Eye, staring at reports that made no sense. The supply depot at Korath was gone. Just like Keth 9, it had simply stopped existing. No explosion, no debris, no witnesses. Hien had investigated terrorist attacks before. There were always clues. Bomb fragments, energy signatures, someone who saw something. But these attacks left nothing behind. It was like the targets had never been there at all. His door chimed. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Cray stepped inside carrying another report. "Sir, we just lost contact with Patrol Base Centauri." Hien felt his stomach drop. "The same pattern?" "Yes, sir. Normal communications until 0800 hours, then complete silence. A patrol ship that passed by the coordinates 2 hours later found empty space. That's the third installation in 3 weeks." Hien rubbed his temples. A headache was building behind his eyes. What do they have in common? They're all isolated posts on the outer rim. Minimal contact with the main fleet. Small crews, usually under 5,000 personnel. So our enemy is picking off weak targets. Hien pulled up a star map. "Show me the locations." The 3 missing bases appeared as red dots on the map. They were scattered across different sectors, hundreds of light years apart. No obvious pattern except their isolation. "Sir, if I may," Lieutenant Cray said carefully. "Some of the crew are starting to talk. They're saying these bases were destroyed by some kind of superweapon. What kind of superweapon leaves no trace? That's what scares them, sir." Far away, aboard the Silent Dawn, Jiwon's crew was celebrating their latest success. The patrol base at Centauri had been protecting a major shipping route. Without it, Imperial cargo ships would have to take longer, more dangerous paths. The quantum charges worked perfectly, Minho reported. Complete molecular disruption. Nothing left bigger than an atom. Yuna nodded from her engineering station. The stealth field held throughout the entire operation. Their sensors never even flickered. "Any casualties on our side?" Jiwon asked. "None. We were in and out in 20 minutes. Jiwon allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 3 Imperial installations destroyed without losing a single human life. But she knew this was just the beginning. "Soman, what's the Imperial response?" Soman pulled up the intercepted communications. "They're confused and getting scared. Admiral Vexthar has requested additional forces for his sector. Several other commanders are asking for reinforcements too. Fear is spreading," Do-hyun observed. "Good." "It's more than that," Soman continued. "Captain Hien from Imperial Intelligence is investigating. He's smart. If anyone can figure out what we're doing, it's him." Jiwon considered this. "Then we need to stay one step ahead. What's our next target?" On the screen appeared the orbital shipyard above Praxis 7. It was much bigger than their previous targets. 20,000 workers, dozens of ships under construction, heavy defenses. "That's ambitious," Yuna said. "The Empire needs to learn that nowhere is safe. Jiwan replied. Besides, destroying their shipyard will stop them from building new warships for months. Minho studied the target data. Security is tight. They have patrol ships, sensor grids, automated defenses, all of which are useless against an invisible ship, Jiwan pointed out. Set course for Praxis 7th. Meanwhile, on the hidden human base in the asteroid field, Taewon was doing his part in the war. He looked like any other Imperial bureaucrat. Clean uniform, neat appearance, loyal expression. But he was feeding carefully crafted lies into the Imperial communication network. His false reports suggested the attacks were coming from different directions. Pirates from the Outer Rim, rebels from the core worlds, even hints that other alien species might be responsible. The more confused the Empire became, the better. Status report from Intelligence Division, he transmitted to his resistance contact. They suspect multiple enemy groups. No unified threat assessment yet. The message reached Seojin at the Resistance Command Center. As mission coordinator, he planned each attack to maximize confusion and fear. The randomness was carefully calculated to make the Empire paranoid about threats that didn't exist. Our phantom strategy is working, he reported to his superiors. Imperial forces are spreading thin, chasing shadows. Emperor Zalthok himself was beginning to take notice. In the crystal halls of his palace on the capital world, he met with his top military advisors. 3 installations lost in 3 weeks, he said, his voice cold as space. No explanation. No enemy identified. This is unacceptable. Admiral Vexthar stood at attention. Your Majesty, we are investigating every possibility. But whoever is doing this has technology we don't understand. Technology doesn't appear from nowhere. The Emperor snapped. Someone is supplying our enemies with advanced weapons. Find out who. Yes, Your Majesty. We'll increase security at all remaining outposts. Good. I want every installation protected. Double the patrols. Triple the sensor coverage. Nothing moves in our space without us knowing about it. As the meeting ended, none of the Imperial leaders noticed the small recording device hidden in the crystal walls. Hanel had placed it there months ago, when she was still pretending to be a loyal palace servant. Now she worked for the Resistance, sending intelligence that helped human forces stay ahead of Imperial responses. The attack on the Praxis 7 shipyard came 2 days later. G1's crew watched through their invisible ship as Imperial workers went about their daily routines, building warships that would never be used against human colonies again. Quantum charges deployed, Minho reported. 30 seconds to detonation. All Imperial personnel have left the area, Soman confirmed. No unexpected vessels nearby. G1 nodded. Despite everything the Empire had done to humanity, she still tried to minimize casualties among ordinary workers when possible. The real enemy was the Imperial war machine, not the people trapped inside it. Detonation in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The shipyard simply ceased to exist. 23 ships under construction, thousands of tons of equipment, an entire industrial complex, all reduced to empty space in an instant. But this time, Jiwan had a special message to leave behind. Deploy the beacon, she ordered. A small device appeared in the space where the shipyard had been. It began broadcasting on Imperial emergency frequencies, a children's song from Earth, in the human language that the Empire thought was dead. Captain Hyan received the transmission an hour later. He played it over and over, trying to understand what he was hearing. The language was unfamiliar, but there was something about the melody that made his skin crawl. Sir, Lieutenant Cray said, our linguistic computers can't identify this language. Keep trying, and send a copy to the Xenolinguistics Department. Someone, somewhere, has heard this before. What Hyun didn't know was that somewhere on his own ship, Woo Jin was listening to the same transmission. But unlike his captain, Woo Jin recognized the language immediately. He had studied human culture as part of his intelligence training years ago. The song was about children playing under Earth's sun, a sun that no longer shone on living human cities. Woo Jin felt a chill run down his spine. The humans weren't extinct. They were out there in the darkness with technology that could make entire space stations disappear, and they were angry. He looked around the bridge at his fellow officers, all confident in the Empire's power, all certain that no enemy could threaten their dominance. None of them realized that their worst nightmare had just announced itself. The humans had returned, and they were no longer the weak species that had begged for mercy 50 years ago. They had become something else, something that could strike without warning and vanish without trace, something that was turning the Empire's own size and power against it. As the silent dawn jumped to hyperspace, leaving only empty space and a children's song behind, Captain Hyon stared at his reports and tried to understand what he was fighting. He was about to learn that some enemies are most dangerous when you can't see them coming. Fear had a smell. Commander Wu Jin discovered this as he walked through the corridors of his Imperial battleship. It smelled like nervous sweat and recycled air that no one wanted to breathe too deeply. 6 installations had vanished in 2 months. Each one had left behind something from the dead human civilization. A flag, a poem, a song. The message was clear, even if no one wanted to admit it. Humanity had survived, and it was hunting the Empire. "Commander," his communications officer called. "Admiral Vexthar wants to see you." Wu Jin made his way to the Admiral's quarters. He found Vexthar staring at a holographic display showing all the missing installations. "Tell me what you see," the Admiral said without looking up. Wu Jin studied the pattern. They're targeting isolated posts, places where our forces can't respond quickly, and they want us to be afraid. Each attack is designed for maximum psychological impact. Vexthar finally turned to face him. The Admiral looked older than he had 2 months ago. "Half my sector commanders are requesting transfers to the core worlds. They don't want to command outer rim positions anymore. Can you blame them, sir? No. But if this continues, we'll lose control of the entire frontier." Vexthar activated his communicator. "Get me Captain Hyon from Intelligence." While they waited, neither officer spoke about what they were both thinking. The Empire had faced rebels before. Pirates, terrorists, even species trying to break free from Imperial rule. But this was different. This enemy could make an entire space station disappear without leaving a trace. Captain Hyon's image appeared on the communication screen. He looked tired. "Admiral, I was about to contact you. We've identified the language in those transmissions. Finally. What species are we fighting?" Hyun hesitated. "It's human, sir." The silence that followed was so complete that Wu Jin could hear the ship's life support systems humming. "That's impossible," Vexthar said. "We destroyed the human homeworld 50 years ago. We hunted down their colonies. The species is extinct." "Apparently not, sir. The songs, the poems, the artifacts, they're all from pre-war human culture. Someone who survived has been studying our forces and developing technology we've never seen before." Wu Jin felt his blood turn cold. The Empire had taught him that humans were a weak species. Primitive technology, divided governments, no real military tradition. They had fallen in 6 months. But what if the survivors had spent 50 years learning from that defeat? Aboard the Silent Dawn, Jiwan was planning their most ambitious strike yet. The Imperial fortress on Theron Prime was supposed to be impossible to attack. It protected one of the Empire's most important core worlds, with orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. "The psychological impact will be enormous," Minji explained from her monitoring station on the hidden asteroid base. "Theron Prime has never been attacked. The people there think they're completely safe." "What about the defenses?" Yuna asked. Jiwan pulled up the tactical display. 17 orbital platforms, each one heavily armed. But they're designed to fight visible enemies. Our stealth systems should get us close enough to plant charges on their power generators. That's a lot of platforms to hit in one mission. Tohyun pointed out. "We're not doing it alone." Jiwon smiled. "Yunho's ship will hit the eastern platforms while we take the western ones." Yunho commanded the Voidwalker, another phantom ship that had been hitting Imperial targets in a different sector. Like Jiwon, he had lost his family when Earth fell. Unlike her, he had spent 5 years as an Imperial prisoner before escaping. 2 phantom ships working together, Minho said. The Empire won't know what hit them. More importantly, Soman added, they won't be able to explain how it happened. Fear spreads faster when people don't understand the threat. On Theron Prime itself, Governor Sunwoo was hosting a celebration. The planet had just completed construction of new manufacturing facilities that would produce weapons for the Imperial fleet. The orbital defenses were a symbol of Imperial power, proof that the core worlds were untouchable. The party was in full swing when the first defense platform simply disappeared. "Governor," his aide whispered urgently, "we're getting reports from orbital control. Platform 7 is not responding." Sunwoo frowned. "Equipment failure?" "They're investigating now, sir." 20 minutes later, Platform 12 vanished. then Platform 3, then 2 more on the other side of the planet. The celebration stopped. Guests stared at the night sky, where the defensive platforms had always been visible as moving stars. Now those stars were going out one by one. "All platforms are gone, sir," the aide reported, his voice shaking. 17 orbital defense stations just gone. Sunwoo stared at the sky in horror. If the orbital defenses could be destroyed so easily, what was protecting his planet? What was protecting him? The news reached Emperor Zalthok within hours. For the first time in his reign, a core world had been successfully attacked. The defenses that protected his most loyal planets had proven useless against an invisible enemy. "Summon General Kyung-ho," he ordered. Kyung-ho was known throughout the Empire as the Hammer of Rebellions. He had crushed 17 different uprisings using tactics so brutal that entire species surrendered rather than face him. If anyone could stop these phantom attacks, it would be him. "Your Majesty," Kyung-ho said when he arrived, "I've studied the reports. Our enemy is using hit-and-run tactics with advanced stealth technology. Can you stop them?" "Yes, but not with conventional methods. We need to consolidate our forces, pull back from isolated positions, and create defensive clusters that can protect each other." "You're suggesting we abandon the Outer Rim?" "Temporarily, Your Majesty. Better to hold the core system securely than lose everything trying to defend positions we can't protect." Emperor Zalthok considered this. The Empire had never retreated from territory it controlled. But the alternative was watching his forces disappear one by one. "Do it," he decided. "Order all Outer Rim installations to evacuate to defensive positions." The evacuation order went out across the galaxy. Thousands of Imperial facilities began shutting down, their personnel fleeing to the safety of the core worlds. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire was contracting instead of expanding. On dozens of worlds that had been under Imperial rule, the local populations watched their oppressors leave. Some cheered. Others prepared for revolution. A few contacted the human resistance, offering to help in any way they could. Nari, leading the human cell on Theron Prime, coordinated with resistance groups across the planet. "The Empire is retreating," she broadcast on hidden frequencies. "Now is our chance." Within days, uprisings began on worlds the Empire had thought were pacified. The Veltari reclaimed their homeworld. The Morphic Collective declared independence. Even species that had been Imperial subjects for centuries began demanding freedom. But in his command center, General Kyung-ho was pleased. "Let them revolt," he told his staff. "It's easier to crush rebellion when our enemies reveal themselves." He was preparing something called Operation Clean Slate. If the phantom attacks continued, he would use the Empire's most terrible weapons. He would destroy entire sectors rather than lose them to an invisible enemy. Da-hyun, monitoring Imperial communications from her resistance post, discovered the plan. The Empire was preparing to commit genocide on a scale that would make the destruction of Earth look small. "We need to accelerate our timeline," she reported to the other resistance leaders. "The Empire is planning to glass entire sectors. Billions of innocent people will die." Ji-won received the message aboard the Silent Dawn. She looked at her crew, all of them survivors of humanity's darkest hour. They had learned to fight back, to become invisible hunters in the void. But now they faced a terrible choice. They could continue their phantom war, slowly bleeding the Empire to death over years, or they could risk everything on one desperate gamble. "Set course for the Imperial capital," Ji-won ordered. "It's time to end this war." Chaewon, their newest crew member, looked surprised. "The capital is the most heavily defended system in the galaxy." "Good," Ji-won said grimly. "When we destroy their defenses there, the entire Empire will know that nowhere is safe from humanity's vengeance." As the Silent Dawn began its journey toward the heart of the Empire, General Kyung-ho was already implementing his brutal plan. The Outer Rim would burn before he let phantom ships control it. But he didn't know that other phantom ships were already moving. Ships from colonies he thought were destroyed, crewed by humans he believed were dead. They were converging on the capital from a dozen different directions. The Empire was about to learn that some wars are won, not by the strongest fleet, but by the enemy you never see coming. General Kyung-ho stood before the largest holographic display in the Imperial military complex. Red zones marked every sector where the phantom ships had struck. Green zones showed where Imperial forces had retreated to safety. There was a lot more red than green. Operation Clean Slate is ready to begin, his aide reported. All fleet commanders are waiting for your order. Kyung-ho nodded. He had spent weeks preparing this response. If he couldn't catch the phantom ships, he would simply destroy everything they might want to protect. Entire star systems would be reduced to lifeless rocks. Begin with the Korath sector, he ordered. I want every planet in that system turned to glass. Let our invisible enemies watch their potential allies burn. But before the order could be transmitted, alarms began screaming throughout the command center. Sir, the sensor operator called out. We're detecting multiple explosions in the capital system. What kind of explosions? The orbital defense grid around Korthazan is being destroyed. Platforms are disappearing one by one. Kyung-ho felt his blood freeze. Korthazan was the imperial capital world. It was supposed to be impossible to attack. The defenses around it could stop entire invasion fleets. How many enemy ships are we detecting? None, sir. No contacts on any sensors. That's impossible. Something is destroying our platforms. Yes, sir. But our sensors show empty space where the attacks are coming from. For the first time in his military career, Kyung-ho felt real fear. His enemy was not just invisible, it was attacking the very heart of the Empire while he watched helplessly. High above Korthazan, the Silent Dawn moved through the orbital defense grid like a ghost through walls. The Imperial sensors couldn't see her, couldn't track her, couldn't even guess where she might strike next. Platform 93 destroyed, Minho reported. Moving to target 94. The Voidwalker is taking out the platforms on the far side, Somin added. Yunho's crew is right on schedule. Jiwon watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Each defense platform had enough firepower to level a city. Now they were being eliminated without firing a single shot. Any Imperial response? She asked. They're trying to track us, Yuna reported. Launching sensor probes, increasing scan frequency. But our stealth field is holding perfectly. They can't fight what they can't see, Do-hyun observed. But Jiwon knew this was only the beginning. Around the capital system, more phantom ships were arriving. Ships that had been hidden for 50 years waiting for this moment. Yunwoo commanded the Shadow's Edge from the mining colonies. Gao piloted the Void Whisper from the agricultural systems. Dongyuk led the Silent Thunder from the research stations. Each ship represented a different group of human survivors, all united in their desire for vengeance. Emperor Zalthok watched the battle from his palace ship at the center of the defensive fleet. For 3,000 years, no enemy had dared to attack the capital system. Now his defenses were being destroyed by ships he couldn't even see. How many platforms have we lost? He demanded. 60%, Your Majesty, Admiral Vexithar reported, and the rate of destruction is increasing. Where are our attackers? We don't know, Your Majesty. They're completely invisible to our sensors. Then flood the area with weapons fire. Shoot at everything. Sir, if we fire randomly, we might hit our own ships. Do it anyway. The Imperial fleet began firing in all directions, hoping to hit something, anything. Plasma bolts and particle beams filled the space around the capital world. But the phantom ships simply adjusted their positions, sliding between the random shots like dancers avoiding raindrops. On the palace ship's bridge, Hanel continued her work as a communication officer, appearing to be completely loyal to the Empire. But she was actually feeding intelligence to the attacking human forces, telling them exactly where the Imperial ships were positioned. Badi, Emperor's personal vessel, is holding position at coordinates 334, 221, 876. She transmitted on a frequency only human resistance. Fighters knew about Jiwon received the message and smiled coldly. The man who had ordered Earth's destruction was right there, hiding behind his remaining ships. Can we reach him? Minho asked. Not yet. Too many Imperial vessels protecting him. But we don't need to destroy his ship. We just need to make him surrender. How do we make an emperor surrender? By showing him that he's already lost. Jiwon opened a communication channel on all Imperial frequencies. When she spoke, her voice reached every ship in the capital system. I am Captain Jiwon of the human vessel Silent Dawn. You know us as the phantom ships that have been destroying your installations. We are the survivors of Earth, the species you thought you had made extinct. The communication channels erupted with shocked voices. Human? The attackers were human? But that was impossible. We offer you one chance to surrender, Jiwon continued. Withdraw all Imperial forces from conquered territories. Pay reparations to the species you have oppressed. Recognize human territorial sovereignty. You have 1 hour to decide. Emperor Zalthok's voice cut through the chaos. I will never surrender to a dead species. All ships, locate that transmission source and destroy it. You still don't understand, Jiwan replied. You can't fight what you can't see, and we are everywhere. As if summoned by her words, phantom ships began appearing throughout the system, not visible but detectable by their actions. More defense platforms exploded. Imperial ships started disappearing, their crew's final transmissions cut short. My lord, Admiral Vexthar said quietly, we have lost 70% of our defensive fleet. The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat. We do not retreat, the Emperor snapped. Then we will all die, Your Majesty. Our weapons cannot hit targets we cannot see. On his command ship, far from the battle, General Kyung-ho watched his Emperor's fleet being destroyed by an invisible enemy. He had one card left to play, but it was the most terrible weapon in the Imperial arsenal. Prepare the planet killer, he ordered. His staff looked at him in shock. Sir, the Emperor is still in that system. The Emperor will understand. Better to lose one world than lose the entire empire. The planet killer was a massive weapon that could destroy entire worlds by destabilizing their suns. It had only been used once before to make an example of a species that had refused to surrender. Target the capital system star, Kyung-ho ordered. If we cannot defeat these phantoms, we will deny them their victory. But Hajun, working in the Resistance Intelligence Network, intercepted the order. He immediately transmitted a warning to all human ships in the system. Planet killer weapon targeting the sun. Estimated impact in 40 minutes. All ships prepare for emergency evacuation. Jiwan received the message and felt her blood run cold. The Empire was willing to destroy its own capital world rather than surrender to humanity. They're going to commit suicide rather than admit defeat, she told her crew. What do we do? Yuna asked. Jiwan looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of all Imperial ships in the system. Millions of Imperial citizens on the capital world, thousands of crew members on the defending fleet. All of them would die if the sun went nova. She could let it happen. Let the Empire destroy itself and take its evil with it. After everything they had done to humanity, didn't they deserve to burn? But that would make her just like them. Open a channel to all ships in the system, she ordered. Imperial and human. When the channel opened, Jiwan spoke to both sides of the battle. General Kyung-ho has just ordered a planet killer weapon to destroy this system's sun. In 40 minutes, everyone here, Imperial and human, will be dead. The Empire would rather commit murder-suicide than admit they lost to the species they tried to extinct. The Imperial ship's communications. Channels exploded with panicked voices as crews learned their own government was planning to kill them. I'm offering safe passage to any Imperial vessel that wants to evacuate, Jiwan continued. We came here to end this war, not to die with our enemies. Emperor Zalthok's voice came through, filled with rage and desperation. You're lying. The Empire would never. His transmission was cut off as Admiral Vexthar appeared on the main channel. Your Majesty, I've just received confirmation. General Kyung-ho has fired the planet killer. Impact in 37 minutes. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Imperial ships powering up their engines to flee. All Imperial vessels, this is Admiral Vexthar. Begin immediate evacuation of the capital system. That is a direct order. As the Imperial fleet scattered in all directions, Jiwan made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All human ships, protect the Imperial evacuation. Make sure everyone gets out safely. Captain, Minho asked, are you sure about this? We're not like them, Jiwan replied. We don't murder billions of people to make a point. As phantom ships moved to escort Imperial vessels to safety, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. Human and Imperial forces worked together, united by the common threat of extinction. And in that moment, Emperor Zalthok realized that he had lost more than just a battle. He had lost the moral authority to rule. The Empire was finished. Not because it had been destroyed, but because it had been shown to be weaker than the species it had tried to eliminate. The capital system's sun exploded exactly 39 minutes after General Kyung-ho fired the planet killer. By then, the system was empty except for the phantom ships that had stayed behind to make sure everyone escaped. Jiwan watched the star die from a safe distance, its light washing over the silent dawn's hull. Where the Imperial capital world had been, there was now only expanding plasma and radiation. The heart of a 3,000-year-old empire had been destroyed by its own leaders. All Imperial ships have reached safe distance, Soman reported. No casualties from the evacuation. What about our fleet? All human ships accounted for. The other Phantom captains are requesting orders. G1 looked at the tactical display showing dozens of human vessels. Ships that had been hidden across the galaxy for 50 years waiting for this moment. Each one represented a different group of survivors who had refused to give up hope. "Open a channel to Emperor Zalthok," she ordered. The Emperor's image appeared on the main screen. He looked older than his years, his face marked by the weight of watching his empire destroy itself. "Captain G1," he said quietly, "you saved my people, even after everything we did to yours." "We're not like you," G1 replied. "We don't murder innocents to prove a point. No, you are clearly better than us." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "What happens now? Now you keep the promise your general made. Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories. Reparations for the species you've oppressed. Recognition of human sovereignty. And if I refuse?" G1 gestured toward the empty space where his capital world had been. "Your own military just showed what happens to those who refuse to accept reality. The choice is surrender or extinction." Emperor Zalthok looked around his bridge at the officers who had served him loyally for decades. Many were refugees now, their homes destroyed by their own government's final act of spite. "I surrender," he said simply. "The Calreth Empire formally surrenders to the human resistance and agrees to all your terms." The words were broadcast across the galaxy on all frequencies. On 1,000 worlds, populations that had lived under Imperial rule for centuries heard their oppressors admit defeat to a species they thought was extinct. Admiral Vexthar stepped forward on the Emperor's bridge. "Your Majesty, speaking as a military officer, I believe this is the correct decision. We cannot fight an enemy we cannot see, and they have proven they are more honorable than our own leaders." The surrender ceremony took place on the human ship Voidwalker. Since the Imperial capital no longer existed, representatives from dozens of species came to witness the end of the empire that had ruled them for so long. Captain Yunho, as the senior human officer present, accepted the formal surrender documents. "The Calreth Empire is dissolved," he announced. "All conquered territories are free to govern themselves. The Galactic Council will be established to ensure no single species can ever again dominate the galaxy through force." Emperor Zalthok signed the documents with steady hands. "I hereby abdicate my throne and transfer all Imperial authority to the Galactic Council. May the galaxy find peace that the Empire could never provide." 5 years later, Captain G1 stood on the bridge of a very different ship. The Golden Dawn was not a phantom vessel hiding in the shadows, but the flagship of the Galactic Council fleet. Her mission now was to protect the peace that humanity and its allies had fought so hard to achieve. "Captain," her communications officer called, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Zentari system. Pirates are attacking a civilian convoy." "Set course for Zentari," G1 ordered. Maximum speed. The Golden Dawn was not invisible like the phantom ships had been. It didn't need to hide. The galaxy's criminals knew what happened to those who threatened the peace. On the bridge, her old crew from the Silent Dawn worked alongside officers from dozens of different species. Minho commanded the weapon systems with the same skill he had shown during the war. Yuna kept the engines running perfectly. Do-hyun piloted their ship through hyperspace with the precision that had made them impossible to catch. Only Soman was missing. She had retired to Earth to help rebuild the human homeworld. The planet was slowly healing from the Imperial bombardment 50 years ago. Cities were rising from the ashes, and children who had never known war played under a sun that shone on hope instead of desperation. Arriving at Zentari system, Do-hyun reported. The pirates took one look at the Galactic Council flagship and immediately surrendered. They knew the stories about the phantom ships and the humans who had defeated an empire without ever being seen. As the pirates were taken into custody, G1 received a message from Earth. It was from Yejin, who now served as humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council. "The Earth Restoration Project is ahead of schedule," the message said. "The first new city will be ready for colonists next month. We're calling it New Dawn, in honor of the ship that started our fight back." G1 smiled as she read the message. The war was over, but the work of building peace would take generations. It was work she was proud to be part of. "Captain," Minho said from his station, Remember when we thought the only way to win was to stay invisible forever? I remember, Jiwon replied. But we learned something important during the war. What's that? Sometimes the best way to defeat your enemies is to save them from themselves. She looked out at the stars, no longer cold and distant, but full of possibilities. Humanity had survived the Empire's attempt to destroy them. They had learned to fight back against impossible odds. Most importantly, they had learned that true victory came not from revenge, but from building something better than what came before. The Phantom ships still existed, hidden in secret bases throughout the galaxy. But now they were guardians of peace rather than instruments of war. They watched over the new order, ready to protect it from anyone who might try to restore the old ways of conquest and oppression. On 1,000 worlds, children learned about the Phantom ships in their history classes. They learned how a species that was supposed to be extinct had defeated the greatest empire in galactic history, not through superior firepower, but through courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to become monsters in their quest for justice. The Silent Dawn itself was displayed in the Museum of Galactic Freedom on New Earth. Visitors could walk through its corridors and see the simple ship that had struck fear into the heart of an empire. They could read the names of the crew members who had risked everything to ensure that freedom was not just a word, but a reality for every species in the galaxy. And sometimes, late at night when the museum was closed, maintenance workers reported seeing lights in the old Phantom ship's bridge. They said it looked like someone was still on duty, still watching over the peace that had been bought with so much sacrifice. Whether it was ghosts or just old equipment, no one could say. But the people of the galaxy slept better, knowing that somewhere in the darkness the Phantom ships were still out there, still invisible, still vigilant, still ready to defend the freedom that could never again be taken for granted. The Empire's fleets had vacated their stations not in defeat, but in the recognition that some victories can only be achieved by learning when it is time to stop fighting and start building something better. And in the vast darkness between the stars, humanity had finally come home.